Hello, Assalamu alaikum. In this video, we will understand about the gastric secretion physiology. So, what is the gastric secretion? Let's understand about that all things. The digestive cells secretion many types of substances for regulation of digestion. So, our complex food will convert into the simple food for the absorption into the blood circulatory system for assimilation. That digestion will lead to assimilation of that food, the simpler molecule like amino acid and glucose. This is the food bolus. It is the partially digested food. Stimulate the gastric secretion. Let's understand about the wall of the stomach. This wall of the stomach contain upper part is the gastric mucosal surface, mean the inner part, and the uppermost is the serosa and subserosa, outer. This is the epithelial layer and lamina propria for the blood circulation, and the submucosa is here, which that contain a submucosal plexus, and the three type of muscle: oblique muscle, fiber first, and then circular muscle layer, and the longitudinal layer. Circular and longitudinal layer will lead to produce the or compose the muscularis externa. Anyhow, we will focus on the upper part inside of the lumen side. Is the contain a glandular structure. Is the here is the structure which that contain a gastric pit for the releasing of the gastric acid and gastric other things. And in this is the stem cell used for the production of more this gastric secretory cells and neck cell and parietal cell as well as the chief cell. A neuroendocrine cell also present. This is the surface epithelium also. So in this way you can understand. Let's understand about the peptic ulcer first. What is the peptic ulcer and their disease? This peptic ulcer disease is breakdown of the mucosal barrier, and in this way the mucus producing cells, neck cells or other types, the surface epithelium will be damaged. The chemical injury lead to decrease the mucus production and the hydrogen bicarbonate, and increase the proton or pepsin will lead to cause gastric peptic ulcer. While the gastric ulcer is the ulcer occurs antrum and corpus or between them, caused by Helicobacter pylori, and the gram-negative spiral bacillus release the cytotoxin which that will lead to damage the wall of the stomach. In this way, the gastric ulcer will different as compared to the peptic ulcer. This is the stomach, and whenever the food will be entered into the stomach, it will be intact with the chemical stimulation when the intact and when intact with the chemical stimulation will give the signal through vagal nerve to the brain and also produce the gastrin. This gastrin is very important, will trigger the it will trigger the more digestion, and that is why it is also the basically the gastrin which that release, and in this the gastrin will enter into the blood circulatory system, and it will trigger also the hydrochloric acid production. While on the other hand the chemical stimulation is here, and on the other hand the mechanical stimulation will also trigger the brain, will lead to basically feel the vagal nerve for sensation of food. This secretin and GIP will also produce from the duodenum when chyme will interact with the duodenum wall, will lead to inhibit the gastrin, inhibit the basically gastrin production. Let's understand about the fundus region and antrum region. This is the fundus region. Remember, this is the vagal nerves. It will directly and indirect contact with the D cell. And what is the DA cell? And this is the direct contact, but that is the indirect contact, not direct. This is the parietal cell, is responsible for the production of hydrochloric acid and contain M3 receptor, muscarinic receptor 3, CCKB receptor, and H2 receptor. In this way, here is the H cell will get the gastrin. This gastrin will bind with the gastrin receptor of the H cell, will lead to produce the histamine. This histamine bind with the histamine 2 receptor of the H cell, parietal cell, will release the hydrochloric acid, and this hydrochloric acid will activate the pepsinogen into the pepsin, and the pH will be dropped too, and protein digestion will occur. On the other hand, the acetylcholine neurotransmitter released from the vagal nerve will activate the muscarinic 3 receptor. This is the antrum region. The acetylcholine will release and the CGPR to activate the D cell and to produce SIH, and in this way it will inhibit the G cell to produce gastrin. While this gastrin is responsible for the endocrine hormone, will trigger the H cell to produce histamine, and this H cell to produce histamine is responsible for the releasing of the hydrochloric acid. So remember, the amino acid content and the decrease of the pH will also trigger the G cell. But whenever the pH will be pH will be increased, also trigger. So it will balance. Remember that when pH will be increased, so the acid will produce. This is the stomach lumen. So in this way, here is you can see this is the basically a bigger picture of this, and this is the proton potassium exchange, and this proton potassium exchange dependent ATP, and this chloride will absorb from the blood circulatory system into the parietal cell. And how the hydrochloric acid release we are discussing in this time. So in this way, here is the carbon dioxide will be exchange, and the sodium exchange, sodium proton exchange, and sodium potassium exchange. And in this way, the parietal cell is here, and this is the hydroxide, which that carbonic anhydrase will combine together to produce carbonic bicarbonate, hydrogen bicarbonate, anion exchanger. This is which that basically function the chloride move into the parietal cell and release, and the proton will combine together to produce hydrochloric acid, while this gastrin in the serum when increased will lead to trigger more parietal cell. How it is possible? Basically, gastrin will trigger the H cell to produce histamine more, to release more hydrochloric acid. This parietal cell basically outflux of the proton is the localization, the drug, which that will proton pump inhibitor, and the H2 receptor antagonist also target to the H cell, a parietal cell. This parietal cell inhibition to the H2 receptor will lead to decrease the outflux of the proton, and in this way the acid production will be decreased. Zolinger Ellison syndrome is the overstimulation of the gastrin in the serum will lead to overstimulation of the parietal cell to produce more acid, lead to cause peptic ulcer. So remember that more gastric will lead to more chance of peptic ulcer. This is whenever the pH will be more than 2, so it will trigger the gastrin secretion. So it will trigger, while on the other hand it will be decreased due to the increase of the acidity in the stomach, while the basically the decrease of the cyclic AMP when the gastrin secretion will decrease will lead to target the D cell to somatostatin release, and this somatostatin and prostaglandin collectively inhibit the gastrin secretion and the D cell to activate. And on the other hand, the G cell will produce the histamine and the gastrin, also H cell. And in this way, the inhibition of acid secretion and lower pH will also trigger the secretion, while the inhibition of the secretion it can possible due to the low pH, and increase the pH will regulate it. I hope you make sense about that gastric secretion. In this video, we have discussed this. Thanks for watching. Please make sure to subscribe, like, and share. Bye.